everybody, welcome to MetTalk. Today we have a very special guest. She's been with Metspace since the 1st of April, and it's Miss Franca Cantini from Startrials. So let me introduce Franca.
Thank you.
We've seen each other in the hallways many times, and honestly, you've always been a ray of sunshine. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we wanted to get deep into you and knowing exactly what you do in your life.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to walk these halls, and the vibration in this place is amazing. So thank you.
Happy to hear.
Oh, we have. Hold on a second. We have a special day today because we've actually been postponing this for a little while because trials and what should we do? What should we do? But today's a special day for you, right?
It is indeed. Today is exactly 1 year that Startrials has been inaugurated, and we're very happy about that.
Amazing. Good stuff.
We have a studio audience, by the way.
It actually is live, people.
So let me tell you about
Please,
Startrials.
tell us what it's about.
Yes.
So Startrials is a company, a small business that basically is very motivated to maximize and accelerate clinical trials. We do that by accelerating what's called the study startup phase of clinical trials. When I say that to people, they look at me like, I still don't understand what you do. So I'll try to explain it. So clinical trials is basically research that is done on humans. Now, before it gets to that stage, there's a lot of rigorous studies that need to be done. It starts in the lab, so in petri dishes, and they make compounds, and then they test it on animals. And then after they've tested on animals and they've proved that it's safe and that it's targeted for what they want it to do, we go to what's called clinical trials, which is testing in humans. Now, that's a big deal. So there's a lot of logistics that need to take place before you can actually start a trial. And that's what we are experts in. So my team are specialists in ethics, scientific review, Health Canada regulations, and contract negotiations. So when I explain this to people, they say, "Oh, so you're like a wedding planner." And after I thought about it, I said, yeah, I'm a research planner, kind of per se. So that's what we do.
Awesome.
Is there a certain type of study that's done? Is there a field of study that you go
Is there a
into?
specialty?
That's a great question. The answer to that is no, because the startup phase is the same regardless. Now, there are different types of things that go on market. For example, there's drugs, there's compounds, there's medical devices, which are things that you wear, there's surgical devices, there's diagnostic devices. So there's different branches, but the startup, we're experts in every single part. We know the regulations. And so what we do is we are able to use our proprietary knowledge, because we have like a database across Canada, because Canada is very specific compared to other countries.
I've seen that.
Every single province has its own regulations. They have their own privacy laws. They have their own ethical standards. So what we were able to do is we were able to map the differences out. And therefore, we save a lot of time for our clients because we've streamlined the process. We use our database, we use our know-how, and we get studies started in half the time. So normally it takes about 8 months to get a trial started. We do it in 4.
Wow.
Amazing. So, Franca, I mean, it's nice, but what brought you there? What brought about Startrials? What made you want to get onto this venture?
Okay, everybody thought I was nuts because I left a well-paying executive job at the hospital to take this leap. And today, a year later, it was the best decision I ever made. So basically, there were many things over the years that pushed me to try to do this. But like everybody, you're kind of...
Fear sets in.
Fear sets in. But then I had like a ding moment. And that involved, maybe some of you've heard of Matthew, the campaign for...
Of course, it's a huge thing.
So that kind of was the last push for me. I was totally inspired by this young man who had critical condition and who had no more options in Canada. Right. And at the time I was in clinical trials and doing something completely different, kind of, in the ethics world. And I read about him, and I know his wife, or widow now, Kathia, and so I was totally inspired because this is a 24-year-old man who has a very critical disease, has no options in Canada, and still was able to have the determination and the courage to fight against government, lobby, and try to get the clinical trials that he needed to save his life here. And so I was part of that journey, and I was very compelled to make a difference. And so he was able to raise money, he did public funding, he went and get his treatment, he went into remission for 9 months, they lived a happy life, and then unfortunately we found out that he has a mutation in his blood that causes it to regenerate. So then he had to do it a second time. They tried to raise money again, and unfortunately, last February he passed away. And I'm happy to say that Kathia continued and was able to bring the immunotherapy that he could not access in Canada to Canada.
Oh, nice.
And patients like him now are able to go to Maisonneuve-Rosemont and receive that treatment.
That's amazing.
That's
That's
beautiful.
really,
Wow.
really good. Nice,
So I
nice,
decided
nice.
that in a small way I had to try to push clinical trials and get clinical trials back to Canada.
Very nice.
Because in the last 10 years we've seen a decrease of 10 to 15% every year. So people say, so who cares? There's no clinical trials, so what? That's what you say when you're not sick. But then when you need it and it's not there, it's a problem. That's number one. Number two, in countries where clinical trials exist, novel therapies exist. So if the clinical trials are not happening in Canada, it means they're not going to market in Canada. Which means that if you need that treatment, you're gonna have to find the means to get that treatment in Europe, in the US, in Australia, and to me, that's unacceptable.
Nice. It's very touching because it's a great story because we actually participated.
Donated
in-
blood.
We donated
Blood
blood,
drive for
and
Matthew.
I think my sister almost fainted that day when we were at Emma, Quebec, giving blood. We were like, it was
That's
really a
amazing.
crazy thing. But it was my cousin Johnny, who I said was friends with all of them, and they organized this whole, and so many people gave blood to give back, and it's exactly that. You're right. People don't realize the need for something until it affects somebody close, until it affects a family member, until it affects yourself. Then you want to do everything in the world to help. And everything. So, I mean, what we did was minor, was nothing. To see his wife, who was still, pushing forward for these tests for the future, and seeing something like Startrials start up is really, really.
It's beautiful. It's a
amazing.
beautiful thing. So
Yeah,
how
beautiful.
can we, as people here watching, people here that are listening to you, how can we help in your progression in helping these trials come into the reality? What can we do to help you?
Well, you're doing it right now.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we need to do is we need to spread this information.
We do.
And make awareness, make people aware that clinical trials are required. They're not guinea pigs. They're actually, most of the cutting edge therapy is through clinical trials. People have like this stigma about clinical trials, but 90% of cancer patients are on protocol. And so I think the perception needs to change. I think that's where average, everyday people could have an impact. If someone invites you to take part in a clinical trial, think about it, because it's really trying to put novel therapies that are going to be better than what's already on the market.
Good.
I get it.
Good stuff.
That's a beautiful thing. You're very passionate
Yeah,
about it.
I am
Yeah,
very
it's
passionate
very strong,
about
very
and I'm
powerful.
very lucky to have a team who is passionate and motivated and determined.
Yes, you've seen your team,
And
beautiful team.
they basically have the same
Drive.
drive. We're doing this to try and make a difference in Canadians' lives.
Love
Nice.
it. Absolutely.
So listen, this is a challenging business that you're in, and it's I'm sure you have your lows and your highs, because I mean nothing's easy, especially in what you're touching, especially that it's touchy in Canada and it's new to it, and so it's tough. So what gets you going? What, on the personal side now, we're gonna switch it up a little bit.
We wanna know,
And you know,
Franca.
what gets you going? What drives you to, I understand that there's many other reasons, but you, Franca, when times are hard, when someone's saying, no, that's impossible, or what makes you tick? What makes you what
I
makes
love
Franca go?
challenges. The more you tell me no, you can't do it, the more I do it. Number one. Number two, I like to read. I like to write poetry. Poetry
You
is
do?
is an outlet for me, and it takes me to places where it like grounds me. Which that's what I do often, whether I'm mad or I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm frustrated.
I don't want to see the bad
That
poems,
gets it all out on paper, and then I'm good to go. My smile's back. So that's one thing I do. The other thing I do, which is a little bit crazy, is that I coach soccer. Young girls. And I do that for two reasons. Number one, because I want young girls to see women who are in positions that are normally not traditional. You don't usually see females coaching. Actually, I'm the only one in that league. And so I wanted to be able to be an example. But the real reason I do it is because I enjoy those kids. They teach me so much. And at the end of the summer, I always write a note to the parents saying, thank you for sharing your children with me this summer, because it's just amazing. I have
It's
one
a
child and I want more and I
Yeah.
can't, so here we go. I go
Beautiful.
and get that energy from them.
What kind of books do you read? You said you would like to read. What kind of books do you
Oh, I
read?
can't mention those titles.
I think all the women
I'm
here know what you're
kidding.
talking
That
about,
was a
but
joke.
that's okay.
I like leadership stuff. I like, the one I'm reading is actually called Being a Badass. Right now. But that's, you know,
I
fun.
love it.
I
I love
read
it.
all the time for work. So when I read outside of work, it has to be something.
Pleasure, fun,
Light.
Fun,
I
light.
agree. I agree.
Exactly.
Nice, nice.
You know what? How about we open it up to our members here if they want to know anything more about
Yeah,
Franca?
sure.
Does anybody have any?
First of all, I want to
Yeah.
say thank you all for coming
Yes,
today.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's great to see all of you here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You mentioned, use the term protocol.
Protocol.
Protocol, what does that mean exactly?
So protocol basically is the exact design of your study. So it basically, because trials happen, research studies happen in different sites, different places, but they have to be the same at each place. So in order to make sure that everybody's doing the same thing, they write a protocol, and that protocol basically says, we're gonna give this dose to this person, this is the study design, this is how it's gonna work, and they follow the protocol. So in the end, all the data is collected and they could analyze it and decide, is this good drug, is it not a good drug, what are the side effects, that kind of stuff.
Like a
Nice.
checklist. Nothing's missing for
It's
it to come into
it's
a reality.
it's this
Yeah.
big, but yes, they use checklists as well.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're
Munir.
welcome.
In your type of industry, on a daily basis, what is your biggest challenge?
What's your biggest challenge?
That's a good question.
Nice question.
My biggest challenge is trying to change the paradigm. So basically, the way that it works now is you have these big companies called CROs, clinical research organizations. They run the entire trial, so from the beginning to the end. I don't. I only take care of the startup. The way that I like to explain it is you have family practitioners who are generalists, they're good at what they do everything. But when there's a problem, they send you to a specialist. I'm the specialist. However, the mindset of people is give it to the generalist and they'll do it. And so that's why it's taking 8 months to 10 months to get started. We're very specific, so we're very targeted, and so we do it quicker and faster and more efficiently. So
Beautiful.
that's the biggest challenge, is to try and get people to change the way they
The
perceive
mindset,
this.
the mindset.
It's the mindset.
Yeah.
But we're getting there.
Well, Franca,
This is
honestly, it's a
amazing.
pleasure.
Franca, this is
You're
really cool.
amazing. May have continued success.
Thank you so
And
much.
Thank
we're
you.
so proud to have you part of our Metspace family. And if there's anything that we can do, as you know, we're full of members here that we all want to help each other. So whatever it is that you need, please, we're always around.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you so much.
I think
Oh, is there another one more?
Just one final question.
Yes.
Yes, sure.
I'm so amazed When can you run for Prime Minister?
Hey,
That's so funny.
yeah.
Leadership,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Nice, nice.
So,
All right, well,
thank
thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
honestly.
much.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Enjoy the
Thank you,
lunch
guys.
and fun. Good.